Happy Sunday. Good morning. Welcome to All Spiritual Life Center's morning Sunday service. We're 5 minutes early. We like to start a little early so that we can share some information. And some of that information I would like to share with you this morning is one that Reverend Micah is going to be doing our Sunday service, and I will be doing the healings this morning. So we're going to change things up a little bit. Also, our event on Friday, I'd like to put a shout out to everybody who attended, and even those who weren't there who wanted to be there and for whatever reason couldn't make it. We want to thank you for a wonderful turnout. We're just getting that much closer to the financial goal that we need so that we can open the brick and mortar to the mystery school here in Dayton, Ohio. So we're very excited about that. Anything else? Oh, yes, I would like to share with you also that our readings in the park, and we'll probably do this at the announcements, but I'm going to double it up just in case video goes poop. Readings in the park has been moved to October 19th due to the Yellow Spring Street Fair being on the 12th. We know a lot of our circle of people like to go to the Yellow Spring Street Fair, and we don't want to have to divide their consciousness into should I go here or should I go here. This way they get to enjoy both. So, and that's kind of what we're about. There's no either or. Find a way that works for everybody. Okay. So there'll be readings in the park at Sugar Creek Metro. We'll start at 11 and we'll go till 4 p.m. We're going to have an apple bob. We're going to have a kids costume contest. There's also a little play area for children, so children are welcome. $20 for one reading for entry, or $50 for 5 readers. So also going to have a 50-50 raffle, so it's going to be great. There'll be snacks and drinks there as well. So we look forward to seeing you October 19th for Readings in the Park, our little autumn festival. Kind of put something in between our next December event, which we will be scheduling. So anyways, we're at 10:27. Is there anything I've missed there, Reverend Micah?
I don't believe so, Reverend Michelle.
All right. Well, we're going to have an interesting healing today. We're going to do things a little bit differently. Good morning, Larry. Welcome. So grateful that you're here today. I will see you later on tonight, mister. Oh, take in that fresh Sunday morning. Today is the first official day. Good morning. Today is the first official day of autumn. Summer is officially over, although here in Dayton, Ohio, it doesn't quite feel that way. We're not supposed to cool down until Monday sometime. So, and then we're going to go have a few days of cool down, and then it's going to go back up. But this is what we call fall. It kind of keeps falling, and it fluctuates, and it falls a little bit more, and then fluctuates. This is part of that Indian summer that you hear about. Vicki, good morning. I'm so grateful. Mama, our Reverend Mike is doing the service today, so I was hoping you were going to attend today, so I'm grateful to see you here. So we are getting on close to 10:30. We're at 10:28 right now. So like I said, we're going to do our healing. Our healing is just going to be a little bit different today. Not a whole lot different, but a little bit, only because I like to move things around a little bit. And let me get one more thing here for Reverend Micah for when he starts. Here we go. The Spiritism, Principles of Spiritism. Now, this will be the last week that we do the Principles of Spiritism. Next week, we are going to do the 13 Tenets of Witchcraft. If you are going to find how that faith is so in alignment with all the others with their tenets. And the reason why we do these different declarations and these different principles and tenets of these different faiths is we want to show that all of them really are saying the same thing. There is no separation. It's just different ways of delivering the same message. And sometimes if we can remove the dogma, remove the man's ego out of the text and see what the core teaching is, we will find that it is the same core teaching throughout the ages. And this is what we enjoy doing here at All Spiritual Life Center, is we are interfaith and we enjoy bringing the whole back together the way it was meant to be, and begin to understand what we can learn from each other and from our different traditions and ancient spiritual traditions across our globe. Because we're all family. We have 2 legs, 1 heart, 2 arms. We get dressed the same way. We have the same trials and tribulations throughout our lives. Why not learn from each other so that we can help each other grow into the best being that we came here to be and enjoy an abundant life full of gratitude and joy? And that's what we seek to do here at All Spiritual Life Center. So we're very grateful that you're here. 10:30, we are going to begin. I've done all the welcomings. So let's just go ahead and jump in with our invocation prayer. Reverend Micah, would you please turn the music off for now? Thank you. Now I got to find that thing that has fire on it. You know, think about this now. Our ancient ancestors, if they saw one of these, regular old Bic lighter, and we lit it, you know, they would think we were magicians. Isn't that kind of neat? We have magic. We have power over the flame. All right, let's everybody kind of get into that warmth. I hope your Sunday is going as blessed as mine is. The first day of autumn, we are going to do our invocation today in honor of the bounty of the harvest on which this season brings us. We thank summer for its warmth. We thank summer for its fertility, greenery, abundant life, sunshine, warm air. We are grateful for the experience of each season, for each season brings a new energy on which we can tap into and get into the harmony and rhythm with for our lives in the duration of that season to prepare us for our ongoing season of life. So breathe in that autumn energy. And we call Mother, Father, God, Infinite Spirit into our presence right here, right now. And merge in with this autumn energy to remind us that this is a time of bounty, a time of harvest, a time of fruition of those seeds that we planted in our spring, a time of nourishment, a time of waning, a time of drawing inward, a time of sharing our harvest and the bounty of our lives, of our garden, of our spirits. Allow this energy to fill you and overflow your cup. Allow your cup to runneth over. Allow this energy to spill forth in your environment, in your aura, and in the world around you. We say thank you for the harvest of our lives. And for the seeds that we will collect in this time to be weeded through during the winter months and restored and returned into the earth so that we may plant a fresh garden. So let's take our seeds, allow them to dry, and allow ourselves to be grateful for this season that we have entered into. And we light the flame of the Creator of all seasons, of all life, all bounty. And we say, yes, thank you. Samadhi. All right, so since I am doing the healing service, I will not be getting up right now. All right, so we've done our invocation. We're feeling the bounty and the feeling of gratitude and abundance filling us up. Good morning, Sarah. Welcome. So glad to see you here. All right, so our healing service is going to be a little bit different because I like putting spin on things and freshen things up a little bit and bring something a little different. One of the things I have learned through all my spiritual training is, sometimes when we get into prayer and when we get into services, we have to bring fresh and expanded ideas on the old, just for the simple fact that we can get habitual. And then when we get into these prayers that are habitual, then it's almost as if they lose their meaning. And there's nothing wrong with ritual, but sometimes we need to change the wording or we need to change the ritual a little bit so that we can be mindful of what we're doing and not just going into a robotic way of doing things. That way it continues to stimulate our feelings, it continues to stimulate the words we're going to choose, and in doing that, it makes us present in that moment of presence. So today, we're going to do all of that. I'm actually going to let Reverend Micah read off the principles of spiritualism today after we go into the healing ceremony. So we're shifting things just a little bit to see how things flow. So we're grateful that you're patient with us. All right. So here I want you to get into a really nice, relaxed state. And what I'm about to read for you is called an Awaken Vow Break. And this came to me this morning to do for the healing service on the other side of last night's spiritual development classes. It's been amazing. We have more and more people showing up for this. This is just but last night with the group that we had, we got information that had to do with why the five of us had come together once more. And what we had discovered is that we had had a past life experience together. And I come to find out they're all my children. I was the mother to all of them, including my husband now, which is kind of odd, but it explains a few things and we can get that. So, life is eternal and our soul. And since here at All Spiritual Life Center, we know that reincarnation is truth. So, understanding and seeing how our tribes continue finding each other so that we can work through karmic debt, so that we can clear wounds, so that we can come together and heal together. And last night was amazing healing time. So it was very interesting. And having experienced that last night, I thought I would bring a little bit of that into our healing service today, because since life is eternal and our souls are eternal, and we have had many, many lifetimes. This is not our first merry-go-round. And the people that we gather around us are people that we have had past life experiences with. And we always don't fall into the same suit of category on gender or on roles. So where my husband in this lifetime is my husband, in the past lifetime, he was my son. I found out my father of this lifetime was my husband of that lifetime, who fathered these children. Not in this lifetime, of course, but this was back in Delphi. We were traveling back to the time of Delphi of, what was it, 692 BC. And we found out a lot of verified information that we were able to verify, look up, and it was quite interesting, very quite interesting. And that's what we're going to do today, is knowing that we are eternal beings living many experiences in the human form. We are going to do what we call Awaken Vow Break. Because a lot of times in these past lives, we get put in positions where we have to take vows where it's either against our will, or in this lifetime, we may not feel that we need to hold on to those vows because things have shifted, we have grown. And if we hang on to these old vows sometimes, and I'm not saying they're all bad, but I'm just saying there's a lot of them that are, that can hold us back. We hang on to these old vows, they can stifle our growth. So we have to remind ourselves of the eternity of life and that we need a cleansing of our spirit and our vows, things that we may have agreed to that we no longer find an agreement of. Okay? So today's going to, like I said, it's going to be a little bit different. Good morning, Christine. So let's allow ourselves to get in a quiet, meditative place. Let's close our eyes. Let's breathe deep from the belly to the lungs, out through the mouth. Follow that breath inward. Feel the chair or cushion or floor or bed supporting you comfortably. Continue to focus on that breathing. Feel the coolness of the breath going through the nostrils, down through the throat and the esophagus, into the belly, expanding and filling the belly, filling the lungs, and breathing out through the mouth to continue the rhythm of breath. When we get into this rhythm of breathing, it tells our body that this is a holy time, a sacred time, a time of presence. And each breath that we breathe out, we relax more and more into this presence. Now we begin to change the rhythm, and you take a breath, breathe in through your heart. Feel the energy coming through your back into your heart chakra and pushing forward out into the light that lights your way in the truth of spirit. Allow this rhythm to expand you, to fill your heart with gratitude, eternity, love. Now I want you to listen to the words I'm about to say, and I want you to repeat them out loud. I now rescind any and all vows that I have taken to experience the illusion of unconsciousness. As a light bearer of my genetic lineage, I break these vows for myself and all of my ancestors. I declare these vows null and void in this incarnation and all incarnations across time and space, parallel realities, parallel universes, alternate realities, alternate universes, all planetary systems, all source systems, all dimensions, and the void. I ask for the release of all crystals, devices, thought forms, emotions, matrices, veils, cellular memory, pictures of reality, genetic limitation, and death now. Under the law of grace and by the degree of victory, by the degree of victory, by the degree of victory, as spirit wills, I ask for awakening. As spirit wills, we are awake. In the beginning, I am that I am. Bereshit Yahweh Asher Eheya. Amen. Allow these words to sit with you. Feel the power that you just reclaimed for yourself. Breathe in that sovereignty. Breathe in that peace. Knowing you have freed yourself from anything that would tie you back or bind you. Know that you are a sovereign being, and that our job is to let go of the leashes around us, to untie ourselves from the world of bondage, and to release our spirit into the divine essence on which we came. This is our holy mission. It is also our mission to heal ourselves from these old wounds, these old vows, these old times that don't serve in the time of the grand awakening that we are in. And we must remember that as we heal ourselves, we heal the world, because all is in vibration. And it becomes a ripple effect across the waters of our planet, of our spirit. As we begin to move past our petty egos, our angers, our fears, our past life memories of pain and suffering, enslavement, we step into the world of truth and freedom for our own lives. Therefore, we become the demonstration for all to see. And this higher vibrational frequency that we begin to emanate in our environment expands our aura and touches those around us. And it stimulates healing vibrations within them as well. So you see, we can change the world by changing ourselves within to who and what we are meant to be. And that is divine beings of light who are not afraid to walk in the darkness. We have faith. We are cloaked in truth. And we are supported, protected, and guided into the path home. I ask this great unseen healing force to remove all obstructions from my mind and body and to restore me to perfect health. I ask this in all sincerity and honesty, and I will do my part. My part is to go within, to break these vows, to become the light of the world, and become the way for others to see, to awaken to the Christ consciousness, to become as Christ. That is our mission. That is our divinity. That is our eternal way home to that divine heaven, however we may picture it. Now I bring up friends and family who might have different views, and that's okay. But I bestow upon them the harvest of this healing and giving and sharing in this autumn season and every season. And then I ask, as I picture them in my mind's eye and I feel them in my heart, I ask this great unseen healing force to help both present and absent ones who are in need of help and to restore them to perfect health. I put my trust in love, in the power of infinite intelligence. So mote it be. Allow these words of power to envelop you. Feel this healing energy fill you, expand you, breathe you. And we thank this great unseen healing force for the memory of this knowledge on how to free ourselves from ties that bind, whether they be from past incarnations or from this life in the past. We let go of these wounds by turning and facing that darkness that holds us in bondage and saying, no, no, I am the master and captain of my soul. And I let go, for I am a sovereign being in the light of the one creator. And I forgive those who I feel have wounded me, for I too had known that I have wounded others. And in this forgiveness of others, we forgive ourselves for our transgression against others, so that we can become one soul. And remember that there's only one life here. And as we continue uncovering and unraveling the truth, we become one race who all have human bodies, but our souls were all created of the divine love. And we bring together the sacred marriage of this incarnation of mind, body, and spirit with one another. And we say thank you, thank you, thank you for loving us so much to allow us to make our mistakes, but allowing us to heal and make amends for those mistakes. And this is true divine love. Amen. Blessed be, and so mote it be. Now I'm going to turn this over. I hope you enjoyed that healing service. I know I did. To Reverend Micah. And he is going to share an amazing service with us today. And he will also go ahead with any announcements, even though I said them at the beginning, we'll recap towards the end here. Have a blessed Sunday. I love you and thank you all for joining us. Reverend Micah.
Thank you, Reverend Michelle. All right. Good morning, everyone. How are you today? I know I'm a lot better after that healing service. Now, something that we like to cover, which Reverend Michelle already spoke of, is that we like to cover the principles and tenets of different faith practices. And what we have been sharing recently, and what I'll be sharing with you now, is actually the principles of Spiritism. Number one, God is the supreme intelligence, first cause of all things. We've heard it before, the beginning and the end. Number two, God is eternal, immutable, immaterial, unique, all-powerful, sovereignly just, and good. All things. Number three, a spirit is not an abstract, undefined being, only to be conceived of by our thought. It is a real, circumscribed being which in certain cases is appreciable by the senses of sight, hearing, and touch. So they are not fiction. We can actually communicate with them. Number 4, all spirits are destined to attain perfection by passing through the different degrees of the spirit hierarchy. This amelioration is effected by incarnation, which is imposed on some of them as an expiation and on others as a mission. Material life is a trial which they have to undergo many times until they have attained to absolute perfection. So, perfection isn't from the outset. It takes lifetimes of experience and learning in order to get to that point. But the journey is what's most important in getting there. Number 5, a spirit's successive corporeal existences are always progressive and never retrograde. But the rapidity of our progress depends on the efforts we make to arrive at the perfection. Intention is everything. That's what I got from that. Number 6, the soul possessed its own individuality before its incarnation, and it preserves that individuality after its separation from the body. And we've discussed that before, that what actually lives within us, what we call our soul and our higher self, continues to live even while we are having this bodily experience. And when this body is laid down, that which lives within us is what continues. And that is what true immortality is. Number 7, on its re-entrance into the spirit world, the soul again finds there all those whom it has known upon the earth, and all its former existences eventually come back to its memory, with the remembrance of all the good and all the evil which it has done in them. When we pass from this mortal coil, we see all of our acts, we see all of our memories, good or bad, we remember all of them. And those are what help us in our experiences to attaining that perfection. Number 9, spirits exert an incessant action upon the moral world and even upon the physical world. They act both upon matter and upon thought and constitute one of the powers of nature, the efficient cause of many classes of phenomena hitherto unexplained or misinterpreted. What we see as phenomena and things that are supernatural, paranormal, unexplainable, chances are spirit has something to do with it. Next, spirits are incessantly in relation with men. There is no separation. The good spirits try to lead us into the right road, sustain us under the trials of life, and aid us to bear them with courage and resignation. The bad ones tempt us to evil. It is a pleasure for them to see us fall and to make us like themselves. What's the old saying? Misery loves company. I'd rather keep the company of those that are for my highest good and for the highest good of mankind. Lastly, the moral teaching of the higher spirits may be summed up like that of Christ in the gospel maxim, do unto others as would that others should do unto you. That is to say, do good to all and wrong no one. This principle of action furnishes mankind with a rule of conduct of universal application from the smallest matters to the greatest. The single principle that really spawns many others. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. What is it that you want to do for people, and what is it that you would honestly like to receive back? Good food for thought. Which actually leads me into what I wanted to discuss with you today. Normally, we think of spiritual practices, and it's common to hear about the places that we will go to when we pass on from this mortal coil. But I wanted to actually ask you a question real quick and ask you to do something with me. First, imagine, just for a moment, that there is no heaven. Then, imagine, just for another moment, that there is no hell. There's just people around you. Living in their days, some notice you, some don't. Perhaps the majority don't. Now, the reason I bring this up is because there is an important question that needs to be asked. With no thought of what you might gain or what you might lose, imagining that there's no heaven and then there's no hell, with only your fellow people around you, how will you choose to act, think, and behave when the only eyes that are upon you are your own? How would you? No one's watching you. There's no judgment. How will you choose to act knowing that you're the only one that sees what comes of it? Would you live justly? Would you just do whatever you wanted to without thought of consequence? This is often the circumstances that can make a person what we call righteous or what we call self-righteous. And really, righteous people and righteousness is what I wanted to talk with you about today. We think of the word righteous, we usually will go to the Bible, the qualities of the righteous man, the virtuous person. But what does the word actually mean? Well, Reverend Michelle and I love looking up the definitions and the origins of words, and this will be no exception. Righteous, from the Old English word right-wise, which meant right and state, manner, or condition. So more easily, it can be defined as the right way of living or being. And the reason that it eventually came to be known as righteous is because it was equated with the word bounteous. So, what does it mean to actually be righteous? What is the path of the righteous? I think the best way to really understand it, and how I've come to understand it, is it's much in common with the Hindu concept of dharma. We hear dharma as, in relation to Buddhism. We hear it in relation to Hinduism. What it actually means is that it's the eternal and inherent nature of reality, regarded in Hinduism as a cosmic law underlying right behavior and social order. So, trying to translate the word dharma into a Western concept we can understand is notoriously difficult because it's such an all-encompassing word to describe many ideas and many feelings. But a few that we can actually share and what we can understand what dharma means is that it's such things as the duty, your duty, my duty, Michelle's duty, the rights, laws, conduct, and the virtues. So in the Western mindset, the most basic way we can think of it is right way of living. So therefore, dharma and righteousness actually are in cohesion together. They mean much of the same thing. But most of the time from a Western concept, when we think of righteousness, we think of one who always helps the poor, always helps the wounded. They take vows of piety, obedience to laws, and they take vows of poverty even. I am supposed to forsake my material possessions. I'm supposed to forsake a life of wealth, but only in service to other people. That is the highest form of righteousness that's usually thought of in the Western world. Now, in the Eastern world, some of those things do match up, but also your dharma and the way of righteousness has to do very much with your vocation. It doesn't necessitate that you become a monk or that you live in a convent for the rest of your life. It actually means that you fulfill your duty in the world. You fulfill your duty in your actions to each other and in your actions in your own life, whether that means you're a librarian, a police officer, a teacher, a reverend even, or if you just work at a bank or a grocery store. No matter what you do, if that is your dharma, your duty, then that is the way that you can attain the path of righteousness. It doesn't mean the forsaking of all those things, but the bringing about of those qualities, no matter what you do and no matter where you go. And often, dharma is connected with the other concept of Hinduism, and that is karma. Now, normally also in the West, we think of karma as like a record of all of our deeds. And in a sense, it is exactly that. It is a record of what you've done that has been judged as good and what you've done that has been seen as evil, like what we read here in the spiritualist principles. But also, think of it this way. The true meaning of karma in Hinduism and Buddhism is that it is an action, not a result. When you create karma, it's so much that I do a bad thing, so therefore a bad thing has to be visited upon me because that's part of my record keeping. what it really means is that it's talking about cause and effect. Karma leads you to do an action because it is your duty. And from that action, this is immediately what is going to come about. Not necessarily from a sense of reward or punishment, but because this is just what you do. And I think that when we look at things, the path of righteousness and dharma, from away from a feeling of, well, if I do this, then I'm going to be rewarded and I'll be seen as a good person. But if I do this, then I'm definitely going to be punished. And I want to avoid that. Now, here's why I want to bring this up. I want to share a story with you. When I was growing up, I went to church, obviously, and I was mostly involved in the children's ministry. I loved working with kids. I loved having the potential and the opportunity to shape young people's minds and hearts, and hopefully that they're living the best life that they can. So while I was there one day, I heard the teacher, Pastor Dave, great man. I love that man. He talked about to the children that there was a practice that we would have, that the most well-behaved children throughout the entire service would earn a prize by the end of the day. And this is when we first learn about things like cause and effect, reward and punishment. The way that he would describe it is that if someone around you was being what he called naughty, that you would be saying to them, listen, I need you to behave right now. I need you, if you're going to sit next to me, I want us to pay attention to this service because I want that prize by the end of this. Now, as I heard that when I was younger, it made sense to me. And as I think about that now, I have to question, as a child, I learned things like reward and punishment. But as an adult, is that supposed to be what spurs all of my right actions? Spurs all of my actions? The promise of something? An expectation of a result? No, I don't think it should be. Because as spiritually mature adults, what has to be at the focus of our minds is that when we do an action, our intent has to be doing what we call the right thing for the right thing's sake. Nothing more and nothing less. When we get into that spirit, that's when things actually are created, because that's what is fulfilled by taking the righteous act. Now, we talk about things like righteousness, we talk about things like dharma and karma, but what are those qualities? We can read many, many texts and wonder and see the comparisons and all the possibilities, but as I was thinking about this concept through the week, what actually reached out to me are the 5 virtues of Sikhism. And this is actually why I think this is important, because Sikhism is one of the newer religions of the world. But what it had its beginnings in is that in India, there was the Hindu community and there was the Muslim community. Those came together who could see the truth in both of those faith practices. And they wanted to bring them together to show how they are actually the same and how they can be comparable rather than how they're different. You may hear some of these and realize that they're similar to some that you've heard before. The first virtue is called Sat, S-A-T. It means truthful living, and it's having accordance with things like truth, justice, impartiality, honesty, and fair play. What this means to me is that when we live truthfully, we are doing the right, like I said before, we are doing the right thing for the right thing's sake. We don't do things in order to be better than people. We don't do them to see, look at me, look how glorious I am. Don't you want to be just like me? We do them because it is the right thing to do, and sometimes not always necessarily the easy thing to do. And we'll touch on that after I read the rest of these virtues. The next virtue is called Santak, and it means contentment, the freedom from ambition, greed, envy, and jealousy. Once again, we hear right there the expectation of a result. That's where things like greed, envy, and jealousy come from. We do these things, but we want it to have this effect. We want it to do this for us because that's exactly what we think is right to come about. That doesn't always match up with our human expectations. And there's a saying in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and in addiction recovery that expectation will set you up for resentment every time. If I do something for the expected result of what I think it should be, I'm going to be disappointed. That is a very fact of cause and effect. Once again, when I do the thing and I take the right action for the sake of truthful living, then that's when I find contentment and happiness with my actions and with the results that do come about. I take the action and I surrender to the result. Whatever that divine will have of me by doing this, that is what I want to bring about. Nothing more and nothing less. The next virtue is called daya, and it means compassion, in the way of seeing through the eyes of another and understanding their sorrow in order to help them heal their suffering as much as possible. It's important that for the person that will walk the righteous path, it's not just through my eyes that I need to see the world. I need to see life through the eyes of another person as well, what we call the other. Because in doing that, we also get a better understanding and a clearer picture of ourselves too. Because if God is everything and God is nothing, then God not only rests in me, God rests in everybody. So the more that I can see through the eyes of God, meaning seeing through the eyes of others, I am then more compelled to do the next right thing to help them with their suffering on this path. Because the path of the righteous, we've heard before, is the straight and narrow path. It only leads you in this one direction, which is the return home. Many people will fall off the path because they're confused, because it leads to a form of suffering and confusion that they just don't understand how to work through, and they stay mired in it. It is then therefore the duty of us as people who want to live righteously to help guide them back to the path, to help guide them to a state of healing where they see, now this is my destination, not to wallow in my sadness, but to become more attuned with pure divine consciousness. Number 4 is called nimrata, and it means humility, not aiming to be better than another, but to do the good works for the work's sake and not for the promise of reward, which we have talked about before. Humility is then also realizing that any works that I do, whether they be small or whether they be great, what I'm actually doing is that it's not the result of Micah having done these things. It's the result of the higher spirit of that which is called Micah coming through him. It's the ray of light shining from that heart and wanting to do the works and knowing that it's by that will and not mine that they are done. Surrendering yourself, surrendering that desire to just want to fulfill that great work. Because when that is your main focus, when you know that that's where that power comes from, you realize, man, I don't have to do anything about this. It's not me that's actually doing it. I just have to move myself out of the way so that the truth can come through. The last virtue is called payar, and this might be the one that actually ties all of them together. It means love. And the best way that I feel like I could describe this is that it's exemplified in what is the Bible of the Sikhs themselves. It's called the Guru Granth Sahib. And this is from Ang 139, like Ang is like one of their verses. Let the fear of God be your feet, and let his love be your hands. Let his understanding be your eyes. Now, fear, I want to make a point. When they're talking about fear, it's not cowering in a corner of some greater being. It means the respect and the reverence of God. Where my feet walk on this path of the righteous, I want respect and reverence for the path and for the world that I walk in to be what my feet are made of. Whenever my hands touch the grass or touch the trees, when they touch every rock or even the air itself, and when they touch people, I want it to be the healing hands of the Most High that reaches out and touches them. Not a hand that would wound, but a hand that would heal. And I want that understanding, which we talked about before, seeing through the eyes of another, to be my eyes. And that's because when you see people with the truest expression of love, unconditional, non-judgmental, but seeing them for everything that they are, whether we perceive it as good or bad, and really it shouldn't be called good or bad. We perceive them for their strengths, and we perceive them for some of the faults that we have accumulated. I'm no different. But when we can see someone in the totality of that, and we love them nonetheless, then we are truly seeing them through the eyes of God. And there is no more pure way to see people than through that. So, the final thing that I think I want to bring up on the path of the righteous. Often, as we're walking this path, it sounds beautiful. Sometimes it sounds easy. Sometimes it doesn't. This is one of the most important things to remember about it. It can often lead you to a life that is outside the norm. Often the people that walk the righteous path are viewed as outcasts and renegades, but they do it anyway. And they do it for creating the kingdom of heaven on earth, which is, in fact, already here. So, this is important that I feel like I should express to you, and this is what Spirit wants me to express through you. Walking the path of the righteous and being a person of righteousness is simple, but it is not easy. And I feel like we should all be prepared for something like that. We think of someone, as a truly righteous person in history, just as one example. We think of Jesus, the Christ, as we have called him. And Christ, remember, is a title. It's not a last name, and it means anointed. When you think of Jesus walking around and teaching the masses, whether some history would say that he was, in fact, married to Mary Magdalene, most of the view in Hebrew culture and in Christian culture is that he was not. So think about this for a second. In Hebrew culture, in order for someone to be called rabbi, and in order for someone to actually teach the masses, they had to be married. They had to have children. But if we think of Jesus from the perspective that he was not, then he was already breaking Jewish law by doing what he was doing. He was a renegade. He was what people would view as the outcast, because he didn't just stick with the Pharisees and the scribes. He didn't stick with people of that high social order in order to share these truths with. He went to the thieves. He went to the Gentiles. He went to the murderers. He went to the workers on the streets. He went to all of these people to share it with, because they were the ones that perhaps needed it the very most. He didn't live by just speaking what should be done. He showed us what should be done. Maybe a more recent example could help too. One of the people in the world that I've gotten much inspiration from, and I truly admire, was Martin Luther King Jr. Think about this man in the time that he was living in. This was at a time when segregation was at an all-time high. You could not go where only the whites could go. You had the bathrooms for whites only and for coloreds only, water fountains for whites only and for coloreds only. He saw a world that was different. He saw, in his words, a world where the hands of little black boys and little black girls and the hands of little white boys and little white girls could be joined together in harmony, brotherhood, and common relationships and love. Now, to speak about something like that for the time that he was in, it might as well have been a death sentence, because he aimed to upset the status quo. And the reason that he did so, and this is the reason why sometimes the path of the righteous is not always easy, is because the main quality of one who wants to be righteous is living for justice, for the sake of justice. And when you see wrongdoing happening to people in the world, it is your duty to stand up for that. It is your duty to defend those rights, because if we see and remember that everybody is God and everybody is us and I am them, then an offense against them is also an offense against me and that which I am representing, which is why we need to stand for each other. It won't always be easy. A lot of times it's not, but it's necessary. Now here's also an example. From the Sikhs, they believed throughout life that to defend the way of living and to defend others, sometimes it would call upon them to take action. They have called this sometimes the just war, but it was only waged when, one, peace talks and harmony could not be reached by words. They had tried several times, but the other person could not listen or would not listen. So when they took this path, they did it for the sake of justice, and they did it for the sake of righting that which they believed is wrong, even if the battle itself could not be won. They still did it because it was the right thing and the righteous thing to do. So we think about that for a minute. It's not always going to be easy to bring about and help people remember the kingdom of heaven on earth. It's not always going to be easy to remind them that they are God and that there is a better way than sometimes the way we've been living. There's going to be a status quo that is upset, and some people would live, fight, and die for that status quo. Do you have the measure to do the same? Do you have the measure to fight for justice and to stand up for justice when it's not the popular thing to do? Sometimes when it's not even the safe or secure thing to do. Do you have the courage to do it nonetheless? I think that a great place to bring this all together is another quote. Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. Martin Luther King Jr. He went for his mission. He and Jesus both, that we remember them. They went for the mission of establishing justice and compassion. They made the ultimate sacrifice, and they were ready to do so always, because sometimes that's what it takes. That's something that I definitely want to embody in my life. Sometimes it's scary to think of, but I want to be invoked with that same courage to still take that action no matter what. I hope this has actually been helpful for you all today. Thank you for allowing me to share this time with you. So carry that on throughout this week. And remember, the path of righteousness is straight and narrow, and it is often a duty by which to live, and it is a duty that I am very grateful and thankful for. So I hope that this has helped you. So, enough?
I was just going to say benediction.
So Reverend Michelle already went over some of the announcements with you today. First, I would like to say, for everyone that did show up to All Spirituals Message Night that we had this past Friday, thank you so very much. We very much appreciated your attendance and your participation with us. Look forward to the next event coming in December. We'll be announcing that more around November.
We're going to be shifting faces in December a little bit.
Yes, we will. We will be shifting the panel of the mediums as well. Just like we keep the services fresh here, we like to keep the faces fresh and to bring in some new energy. Very exciting stuff. And as Reverend Michelle mentioned before, we will be having readings in the park at Sugar Creek Metro Park in Bellbrook, Ohio. We'll be having that on October 19th. The details of those will follow with this service. Look for it for Wednesday this week. We will have the event up and the invitation, the description. We've got lots of fun activities for the kids, the 50-50 raffle, the bobbing of the apples, the mediums, and the readers that you can sit with. Now, I believe for a reading for one medium is $25. $20. That's a good deal. But here's also.
That's for about 15 to 20 minutes.
Yes,
down.
And that's a 15 to 20 minute session with that one reader. Now, if you want to have one across the whole board, it's only $50. So therefore, you're already going to get a discount, $10 for each medium. And then you get 15 to 20 minutes sitting with each medium and having a message. I think that's a great deal. How about you, Reverend Michelle?
That's a great deal. I've done that before in other festivals, and I just found it amazing.
Mm-hmm. Amazing is what we hope to provide. So we hope to see you all there. Look for the invitation soon. And now we come to the benediction. Feel that breath in your chest. Feel it expanding. Let that breath awaken the heart that will be your compass on this path you walk. Mother, Father, God, Infinite Spirit, thank you for the chance that we can gather here today and talk more about how we can achieve pure consciousness, how we can achieve the right way of living and being, that way which helps all of mankind, which helps my brother and my sister, because all are my brothers and sisters. Let the feet that we walk with on this path be of reverence and respect. Let our hands be of healing and love, and let our eyes be understanding for all that we see. Help us to fulfill our duty in this world. Help us to walk the path that is straight and narrow, and to do it for its own sake, with no thought of reward or punishment, but for thought only of accomplishing that will. And together we say, so it is, so mote it be, and amen. Is there anything you would like to share, Reverend Michelle?
No, I think we're done for today. I want to say thank you to everybody for attending, and we so enjoy bringing these services to you. Please tell your friends and your families about us. We would like to see the congregation grow. That way, when we have our brick and mortar, which we are working our financial goal to, we can fill it up with light, with love, with gathering. We have classes. It's just going to be so amazing, so much fun. We look forward to seeing you every Sunday. And again, share, like us on Facebook, check out our YouTube channel. And much love to you.
Much love to you all.
Blessed be.
Bye-bye. Have a great week.